Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this morning. This is Craig Coots. I am the Partner Manager for G3G. I'm also joined on this morning's call by Henry, who is the co-founder of BEST, our business partner, together with Suresan, who is the BEST AP Product Manager. Just in terms of a brief agenda, we're just going to go through the introductions. I'll provide you with a brief overview of G3G. I will then hand over to Henry, who will likewise do the introduction to BEST, and Suresan will follow on with the BEST AP product demo. Henry, if you could just click through to the We Are G3G slide, please. Right, there we go. So over the last 20 years, G3G have helped organizations in highly regulated industries solve a number of complex business problems using SAP. A business that was started in the UK grew very quickly, and in 2016, we became part of Group Elephant.com, which extended our reach beyond the UK onto a global scale. Our award-winning success is largely down to our experienced consultants who've helped us to qualify a number of SAP prepackaged solutions. Those cover the likes of professional services, high-tech, consumer packaged goods, and manufacturing. In the S4HANA space, G3G ourselves moved on to S4 in 2015 and have been helping our clients on that journey ever since. Then, just to briefly introduce our relationship with BEST, we recognize the need to address a shortfall with AP and GL, recon, and clearing. BEST have an amazing solution for this, so it made a lot of sense for us to partner with BEST. With that in mind, we're the exclusive partner for the UK and Europe. So at the conclusion of this webinar, please do contact me. My details will be up at the end of this webinar, and feel free to contact me for further information. We'll be very happy to run a one-on-one demo should that be required as well. And with that, thank you again, and over to you, Henry.
Thanks very much, Craig. Okay, I'm going to start with some slides. We have to do this to put you in a high-level picture of how the system works. I'm going to be as brief as I can so that I can then hand over to Suresan, who will show you the demo in SAP, and you can see the real more interesting and meaty SAP screens. Okay, so that first slide, as it says, we're here to talk about today, how can you do your vendor reconciliations in SAP? So we at BEST, what we do is provide SAP add-on modules. So these are modules directly in SAP, and they're all in the finance area. And as you can see, the four listed there, we do general ledger or balance sheet reconciliations directly in SAP. We do automated clearing directly in SAP, where SAP functionality falls short and you can't clear, for example, between company codes or different accounts, etc. We can do that directly in SAP. We've got a little module to load debtors remittance advices up into SAP and clear the customer account. And then the fourth one at the bottom is the vendor reconciliations, which we're going to talk about today. And all the modules are SAP certified both for the ECC, NetWeaver SAP versions, as well as the latest S4HANA versions. Okay, so quickly how not to reconcile, and then this is actually how we built our products at first, is to interface to something outside of SAP. The problem there is you've got to interface all your vendors out of SAP, and then all your transactions out of SAP, and the interfaces fall down. And you've got another system outside of SAP where your users have to log into. The data's out of date, etc. So we learned pretty quickly that everything's got to be properly in SAP. And really, that's what it is. So we load the product, and it's part of your SAP system. You have the same user logins, just additional transactions. The same SAP security and authorizations controls apply. You don't need extra hardware or software, and you can drill into the rest of SAP. It's all in SAP. And as that diagram at the top shows, with SAP, you've already got purchase order, goods receipt, invoice entry, and now you'll have an additional module in SAP that allows you to do your statement matching and reconciliation. And really, you're going to see the screens just now, but it's really just additional transactions in SAP. Once the module is loaded and the user gets allocated those transactions, they will now have those transactions with the rest of their SAP menu. And there's plenty of reference sites. You know, please just give us a call and let us know if you'd like to talk to anyone. Plenty of different ones to choose from. And then just quickly, how we see people reconciling manually if they don't have the best add-on solution is pretty much like this diagram. The blue blocks are the SAP transactions and the gray is outside of SAP. So what people do is you go into SAP and you download your vendor line items, your FBL1N to speak in SAP, okay? Some people are also downloading the GRR account, have some other transactions from vendor invoice management tools. Anyway, you download all of this to Excel. And then from the right, your vendor sends a statement and it comes either as PDF or Excel. And now in the middle, you've got to match it up. And you might be doing VLOOKUPs in Excel, you might be doing ticking. You've got to try to get the thing to balance, categorize it. The approval is all off SAP. Very difficult to report across multiple reconciliation reports because there's lots of spreadsheets. And the spreadsheets are kind of filed somewhere on a network drive. So, last two slides. The first one is, how do we load the statement into SAP? Once we've got the statement in SAP, now the system can take over and it can match and produce recon reports and approve lots of things it can do. But how do we get it into SAP? And we've got all the possible ways. We've got a lot of customers using this module, and we do think we've come across all the possible ways. And it's really just choosing which way is best for your organization. If we start at the top left of that diagram where it says SAP users, your suppliers can send you spreadsheets. I mean, that may be the case with most of your suppliers. They can send a statement as a spreadsheet, and the user at your end can load that spreadsheet into SAP. Then, if there are some small paper or PDF statements that your suppliers send you, we've got a copy capture screen. And that's great. And with those two SAP user methods, many organizations proceed happily and load it into SAP, and then the rest is automated. But if you've got large volumes of PDF statements being sent or paper statements, or you don't want your users to be loading the statements into SAP, we provide a module called the Best Statement Reader. And that's if you go a little bit further down on the diagram, Statement Reader block there. And how that works is the supplier emails their statement to an email address that you'll predefine, okay, statements@yourorganization.co.uk. And the tool goes and reads the email address, detaches the statement, reads the statement, and loads it into SAP. Now, the reading of the statement is the magic here, is the difficult part. If it is an electronic file from a system, so if it's an Excel file or if it's a PDF where you can highlight the fields, the system reads that quite well. If it's a scanned document, in other words, an image, the system has to do OCR, and it reads it well if it's good quality. Okay? And generally, every supplier is going to send a different layout, so the system would need to be trained for every supplier's layout. In some cases, it can work it out without training, but generally, when you have a new supplier, you need a human to train it for that layout, and then in the subsequent months, it'll go through automatically. Okay, then there are other methods. There's a lot of tools on the market for reading invoices. Some of the more famous ones are OpenText, Vim, ReadSoft, Dolphin. Now, all of these have been used also to load the statements. So we would work with these tools, and we've got standard hooks into them, where these tools would read the statement, and then it would be loaded into SAP. Some of our customers are using iDocs. That's perhaps large retailers who are using the iDocs and EDI and SAP PI. And then at top right, we've also got a website portal where suppliers can go log in, load their own statement. Now, the key with the portal is that it validates it. So if the supplier statement doesn't balance, or it's missing dates, or it's missing information, it will error and the supplier must fix it, and then it'll load into SAP. Okay, great. So last slide. There's one side how it works in SAP. On the left, in that rectangle on the left, is all the possible statement formats, and they get loaded into the block on the right, which is now SAP. And as they're loaded, SAP will match it. And it says there in the center, match all SAP, and that's exactly what it'll do. It'll match all your open, your unpaid, and your cleared, your paid items. If you've got parked and held functionality, if you're using that in SAP, it'll match the parked and held items. It'll also match the GRI, your goods receipts, invoice receipt account. So that's where you've received the goods, but the invoice hasn't been posted yet. It's often a swear word in SAP because this account gets very large. So as part of your recon activities, you do need to consider it. And for this, we need the purchase order number on the statement, because that's the number, the reference with which the goods receipt is posted. If we get that, we can then match into that GRR account. And then also the invoice tools. So we work with a lot of them. OpenText, ReadSoft being two of the most common, eFlow, Dolphin, etc. If they are in SAP, so for example, ReadSoft is in the namespace /cockpit, or OpenText OPT, and we've already developed hooks to read their tables, we can now match any unmatched statement lines to invoices that are stuck or in processing or missing a VAT number or something within these invoice tools like OpenText or ReadSoft. If they are outside of SAP, for example, a cloud invoice solution, we need a file from that solution. We can match that as well. So the system matches everything, going as far up the procurement chain as it can, automatically produces a recon report, and you can have a recon report for one supplier, for all your suppliers, and you can age it across the organization so you can really start to get into nice management reporting there. The approval is online within SAP, so when you approve or reject a reconciliation, there's an audit trail in SAP of the user, date, and time who approved, which is very handy. It means you can go completely in SAP. You don't need to do anything outside of SAP. Once the system has received statements, it can send statement reminder emails to the suppliers based on, it knows which statements it's got, and it knows which statements it's missing, and for the missing ones, it can remind the suppliers to please send their statements. Good. Amy, if we still got you, please transfer to Suresh. I think it's time for some of the meaty SAP screens. Thank you.
Should be done now if you want to share your slide screen.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Henry. And just let me know once you see my screen. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. As I've been introduced by Craig, my name is Suresan, and I'm the Best AP Product and Delivery Manager. And I'm going to now be taking you through the live demo within the SAP system. Now, just to start off with, Henry had mentioned during the slide deck that there's multiple ways to get the statement into Best in SAP. And during the demo today, I'll be taking you through two of those loading options. To start off with, I'm going to be demoing the Best Statement Reader, and that's the emailing of a PDF or Excel statement to a predefined email address. Now, I'm just going to send this email off in the meantime. It does take a few minutes till it gets into SAP, and the reason for that is received by the other email address, downloaded, interpreted, and then transmitted into Best. Now, having a look at my screen, this is a typical type of statement that we can receive from a supplier with the supplier's details in the header of the statement. In the body, we've got the line items of the invoices that have been allocated to the statement. And at the bottom, we've got the closing balance. Now, to send the statement off, we've got email address called statements at BestSAP CPI. And I'm merely going to attach the statement in this email and send it off. Now, there's no requirement to put the subject, but if you'd like, you can put supplier's statement, and you can have multiple attachments in a single email. Great. So I've sent that statement off, and we'll just wait a couple of minutes till that gets received. In the meantime, I'm going to proceed to SAP and take you through the second option of loading a statement in, and that's by way of uploading an Excel statement directly to BEST. Now, as mentioned, BEST is in SAP. All we do is add additional transactions, which will get allocated to your user roles, and that will then allow them to process the reconciliation in SAP. So the first transaction that I'm going to be going to is what we call the supplier statement online matching. For this option, we'll be able to upload Excel spreadsheets here, as well as to do the small copy capture option for statements. Now, having a look at my screen, 4 important bits of information that needs to be inserted, being the company code, the vendor number, statement date, and the currency of that statement. Now, an optional added master data is the statement sub number. Now, in some cases, you'll get multiple statements from a supplier, and you would want to load all the statements onto a single SAP vendor and be able to get a single reconciliation. So that functionality is available within the tool. I'm going to click on Execute, and you'll now see I'm presented with a split screen. On the right-hand side, we have all the unmet SAP credited documents. On the left-hand side is where we're going to be uploading our vendor statement lines from the Excel spreadsheet. Now, just to explain the right-hand side a little bit, there's multiple different colors, as you can see on your screen. To start off with, at the top, we've got these yellow lines. The yellow lines refer to parked documents. Now, as mentioned, we match right up the procure to pay chain just to ensure that we can identify where these documents are stuck. The gray-looking documents refer to either open unpaid or cleared paid items. Those are actual FI documents in your SAP system. The green lines refer to documents that are held through your LIV Miro process. And these orange-looking lines refer to what we call VIM documents. Now, VIM could be one of many different types of tools, such as Resoft, Kofax, OpenText, Esker, whatever tool you're using for your vendor invoice management. We can then bring that data in to ensure that we can show you the status on the reconciliation. Now I'm going to proceed to upload my Excel spreadsheet. So it will allow me to now go into my PC to locate the position of where this file has been saved. And this is the Excel spreadsheet that I'm going to be loading into the system. Just before I click on Execute, I'd like you to take note of the left-hand side. Currently has no line items. The right-hand side, the amount of lines will decrease. And just here at the bottom, you'll see that the closing balance will also automatically populate. I can execute. This will take just a few seconds to come into the system. It needs to be read in the background, the Excel file interpreted, and then uploaded automatically. Right. So on the left-hand side, we can see our statement has now come through. The amount of lines available on the unmet SAP credited document side has decreased. Our closing balance has also automatically populated. On the left-hand side again, we've got multiple different types of indicators that you can see. Red crosses refer to we haven't found anything within our SAP system. The green ticks mean that we found full, posted, either open or cleared FI documents. And the yellow triangle could be one of 5 different options. It could either be in park status, health status, GRIR, or VIM status. I'm going to now proceed to loading my statement into BEST. So I click the center button, and I'm now posting the statement into the system. Matching has now been completed, and this reconciliation is immediately available for review. Now, part of the manual process, this would entail you having to still sort the items into different categories, etc. Whereas with the tool, this will automatically be done in the background. So I'm going to go to another transaction, which we call the supplier statement reconciliation report. On this, you can see there's multiple checkboxes and tabs, and that just allows you to pull different types of reports. For now, I'm I'm going to go straight in just to view the reconciliation. So on screen now, you'll see the reconciliation that has been generated from the statement that we've loaded into BEST. Now, in the first column, you can see there's multiple different types of categories. Now, BEST, as a standard, comes with about 64 exhaustive categories for which we can allocate items into these categories. I'm going to work through some of these categories starting at the top, where we've got the vendor statement closing balance. So that's merely just the statement we loaded, the closing balance of that statement. The next category refers to statement invoices already paid. Now, one of the major advantages of being able to do your reconciliations in SAP is that you can drill down to the rest of SAP. So there's unlimited drill down functionality. If I click on this document number, for example, it takes me into my SAP system for this document. And from there, I can further drill down to see the exact date and clearing document. Just going back, we've then got these three categories, which are our in-processing categories. And these refer to documents that are not yet fully processed into the system and still require a little bit more detail or attention in order to be fully posted. So the first category are documents which are in park status. The next one refers to documents that are in held status. And the third category are the documents which are coming through from your vendor invoice management tool. And as mentioned, that could be either ReadSoft, or Kofax, or ESCO, any one of the tools that you're using. We've then got statement invoices, which are completely unmatched, so we haven't found anything in the SAP system for this. The next two categories are invoices that are posted into your SAP system, but not in the supplier statement. The first category being just normal invoices, and the second being blocked invoices. We've also got categories for your credit notes, and I'm going to scroll down quite a bit to show you these internal categories. Now, these internal categories are basically showing you all the PARC documents for this vendor, all the HAL documents for this vendor, or even all the firm documents for this vendor. Now, the advantage of this is that you can pull a reconciliation report across all vendors, all company codes, and you have a full view of what is currently happening in your AP department. Now, that's the online version of the reconciliation. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some sample output reconciliations. And these outputs are the ones that will go out to your suppliers. I'm going to open up my PDF again. Now, this is a typical layout of this PDF reconciliation that we'll send out to the supplier. Now, just working through the top of this reconciliation, this is just a sample reconciliation. We've got the address details, the logo. On the left-hand side, we've got the vendor details. On the right-hand side, we've got the contact person's details. Now, this contact person is the person that's gone through this reconciliation and done the reconciliation. Scrolling down a bit, you can see we've got a reconciliation summary. So at a high level, as soon as your supplier receives this, you can immediately see what's the issues and what's the queries on his statement. And if we scroll down further, we then get a detailed section, which then shows you for each of those categories, what documents are actually populated in each of these categories. Just zooming in a bit, multiple different bits of information can be reflected on these categories based on your requirement. We also allow you to put in additional reason codes to further explain why the item is unreconciled. Scrolling down a little bit more, we can also add long text. And this is a free format text in which your users are able to just put a little bit more detail onto these unreconciled line items. This is just another version of an output reconciliation that we can send out to suppliers. And in this reconciliation, you can see it balances to the payment. Same look and feel, same layout. And just on this one, there's a lot more categories. So for this client, they required a lot more categories in order to depict this on this reconciliation. Again, scrolling down, we've got the detailed section. Reason codes, long text that can be inserted on these lines to just explain the reason for the item being unreconciled. Now, for these output reconciliations that go to suppliers, we can send them in PDF and Excel as a default. And the Excel is just an editable version which the supplier can work with. Okay. I'm going to jump back over to SAP now. And what I'm going to show you is just some of the reporting that's available within the tool. Now, the first report that I want to show you is on the supplier statement reconciliation report. As mentioned, we'll be able to pull reports across vendors, across company codes, and be able to clearly identify the state of our AP department. And that's one of the major benefits as well of working within SAP. So what I'm going to show you now is just a summarized recon across all vendors, across all company codes. And on this reconciliation, I've opted to age this reconciliation. As you can see on the screen, we've got current, 30, 60, 90, and there is additional aging category. Now, these buckets are completely modifiable as per your requirement. If we drill down on any of the categories, we can then see this data by vendor. And if we further drill down, we'll then be able to get the detail of the line items that is populated for this vendor within this category. Again, as mentioned, multiple drill down functionality into the rest of SAP as well. Okay. Now, because we're working with standard SAP ALV, we can merely just switch around and get a different type of report if you'd like. So, for example, instead of seeing the reconciliation summarized by category, I can now see the reconciliation summarized by vendor, for example. Now, if you can remember, at the beginning of the demonstration, I sent through a PDF statement to an email address. So I just want to confirm if you've now received the statement to guest. Execute, and great. My statement's been received, so that means that the email went through successfully, it was received successfully, downloaded, interpreted, and then transmitted into SAP successfully as well. By clicking on the statement date, I can now go in, see that these are the line items that have come through from our statement. Just to validate that this is the correct statement that had loaded, we've got debit of 200, debit of 300, debit 200, debit 300. We've got credit 30, credit 40, credit 30, credit 40. My closing balance that came through was 15,438 and 1 cent. 15,438 and 1 cent. Perfect. So my statement was loaded successfully, and now the reconciliation process will start at this point. The major difference between the previous example that I ran is that the user will be required to load the statement into the system before the reconciliation is available with BSR, which is the best statement reader. Once the statement is received, we are working from the reconciliation. Now is where you'll then go in, investigate, and follow up on any queries. Okay, perfect. So for my two loading options, we've now gone through the reconciliations. I've shown you a summarized reconciliation across multiple vendors, and that reconciliation was aged as well. I'm going to go into a little bit of the reports that's available within the tool. So to start off with, we've got the missing statements report. Now, during the slide deck, Henry mentioned that we are able to send out statement reminders to the supplier, and this is the transaction that will send out those statement reminders automatically. Now, how this report works is based on the statement date range that you want to have a look at, we can identify, has the statement been loaded into the system or is it missing? So having a look at the report that's now being presented on screen, we've got a number of statements that are reflected as balanced and loaded, but we've got quite a number that are missing as well. Now, because these statements are set as missing, what will happen is we can send out automatic reminders to your suppliers as per your wording and requirement. We've got 3 different stages, and we can send it out at different points in time during that month before the reconciliation process can start. We can trigger this right until such time that statement is selected as balanced and loaded. Okay. The other thing that you can use this report for is those statements that are balanced and loaded. We can show you what approval status that currently is in. So having a look at these 5 statements at the top, for example, we can see that the last statement, there's been no approval levels that have been done as yet. So the statement's loaded, but the actual reconciliation process hasn't yet started. The items marked in 1, that means your AP reconciler or your AP reconciliation preparer has now done their portion, so that level 1 approval has been completed. And level 2 could be that the reviewer has now reviewed it, they're happy, and this reconciliation is basically at its finalized stage. By clicking on the approval level, it'll actually show us an audit trail of who had done the approval. This will be stamped with the user, date, and time that this approval was done. This was just one level of approval. If we click on the next item, you can see there are 2 levels of approval, but there were rejections in between as well, and it will have a full audit trail of the approvals that were done. Okay, perfect. Before I go to the next report, I actually would like to go through the approvals. So this now brings the whole process to an end. So we've gone through the statement loading, we've viewed the reconciliation, and now we're just going through the approval. Now, in a manual process, typically these reconciliations will be required to be printed out, signed off, and then scanned back into the system and stored forevermore. With BEST, all the approvals are done online, and an approval history is saved for all these approvals. So just going into this transaction, you can see that I've selected a number of vendors for approval, and in the second column, it tells you which level of approval is required. So for the first one, for example, the preparer has already done their approval. It's now waiting for the reviewer to go through and approve this reconciliation. Whereas the second line, the statement's been loaded, it's still required in the preparer's approval. Now from here, we can drill down into the reconciliation. If we click on the statement date, it will allow us to go into the reconciliation. So from one transaction, you're able to go back to the reconciliation as well. Okay, and as mentioned, this full approval history is stored on all approvals that are done. So if I just highlight the third line, for example, click on approval history, you can see there's multiple approvals that have been done as vendor. Perfect. So there's one more report that I'd like to take you through, and it's called our statement statistics report. Now, this report here will basically give you stats. Depending on the layout that you saved, it could give you multiple different versions of the stats. I want to go into our statement statistics report. Again, through all our reports, we can run into cross-company codes, across vendors. We can use it for certain date ranges or certain statement dates. Depends on your selection criteria. You can have different reports that will then be extracted. So just going into this supplier statement statistical report, we can see we are now presented with stats by accounting clerk. And just to explain the columns, this is the total match value, the total unmatched value of lines, the total number of lines that have been matched, and the total number of lines that have been unmatched. And this, again, is by accounting clerk. By merely changing your layout, you can choose any one of the standard options that are available. So for example, if we want to see it by document type, we can now see it by invoices per SAP document type. What's the total match value, the total unmatched value, matched lines, and unmatched lines. The same thing for credit notes as well. I'm just going to select another layout again. And now I'm going to select it by vendor, for example. And now we can see by vendor the total matched, unmatched values, as well as the total matched and unmatched lines. Now, you can drill down further if you want to see the detail of this. So we can then go in and be able to see further detail of which lines are actually matched and unmatched based on the data that's been presented on the report. So I think I've completed in a much faster time.
That's great. Good going, Suresh. We always think we're going to overrun. But quite a couple of questions have come in. So I'm just going to read them to you. The first one is, the PDF statement you loaded, can we view it from SAP, and is it stored in SAP?
Yes. So that PDF statement that we've loaded into the system that is viewable in SAP, we use multiple different methods of actually attaching the statement in SAP. The most commonly used method is what we call archive linking, which is where we save the image on the SAP content server if that's available. We can also use the SAP application server, or we can use a third-party Windows server, for example. And these images are stored on the statement that's loaded and visible in SAP.
Can you maybe show that one that you loaded?
Perfect. So I'm going to go into our transaction called supplier statement online matching. And so this is the statement that was loaded just to verify. This is the statement that came through our BSR. And we've got something that we call source document. By clicking on the source document, it will show you that there's a PDF attached to this statement loaded into BEST. Now we cater for PDF and Excel. So if there was an Excel document, we would be able to view the Excel document that was loaded as well. So on screen now, you can see that this was the statement that I showed in the beginning, and this was the statement that was then attached to this vendor.
Okay, cool. Let me launch on with the next one. We are planning an upgrade to S/4HANA. Will BEST work on S/4HANA?
Yes, so definitely BEST will work on S/4HANA. BEST is certified, as mentioned, on ECC 740 as well as S/4HANA. Now we are certified on all S/4HANA versions from 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and we're currently waiting for the 2019 version to become available to us, and we will then certify on that as well.
Perfect. Next question is, we have mostly open item statements from suppliers, but about 20% brought forward balance. Can we load and reconcile the brought forward balance statements in SAP?
Yes, definitely. BEST does cater for both open item and balance brought forward statements. Now you mentioned that, the question that was posed, 80% open item, 20% balance brought forward. So as a generic setting, we can set up that all vendors are open item. And for that 20%, we can specifically set those vendors to be balance brought forward.
Fantastic. This one looks like it might be one for me. How long does it take to implement? It's not a large project by SAP standards. Generally, according to our standard project plan, from project start to go live would be about 2 months. And that's elapsed time. We wouldn't be busy every day. But, we're dealing with large SAP organizations, so things take approval, time to get approval of design documents, and etc. And then in the 3rd month, we'd go live, usually with a pilot, The fourth month would be a rollout, and the fifth month a closeout. So that's a standard implementation time, but we need to work with the organization concerned because there can be freezes or financial year ends, etc. in the middle of that. Okay, here's a nice one for you, Suresan. How do we activate the add-on module in SAP?
Okay, so like standard SAP patches or upgrades, we'll provide what we call a PAT file. So it's done in the same manner as how you would do a standard SAP patch. We'll provide that PAT file with the best product to the basis team, and the basis team will then use standard SAP transactions such as spam to allocate to upgrade the system in order to have the best transactions available.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's well answered. Thank you. Is it possible to balance our supplier statement to the payment we made in SAP?
Yes, so BEST comes with multiple options in how you'd like to balance your reconciliation. So the two main options would be balancing your supplier statement to the creditor's ledger or balancing your supplier statement to the payment. And so, yes, we do cater for balancing to payment. By balancing to payment, we also allow you to still balance back to your creditor's ledger, because we know that auditors, as much as you balance to your payment, that's more for your suppliers, but balancing back to the creditor's ledger is what the auditors would prefer.
Good. Next question. How is the reconciliation report in SAP shared with the supplier?
Thank you. So that PDF example that I showed, there's a transaction that can allow you access to those PDF and Excel reconciliations. From there, you can put in your vendor and company code ranges. You can choose the reconciliations that you'd like to send out, and you'll then be able to either download it, and we give you also an option to email it directly to the supplier. The supplier's email addresses can be picked up from multiple places in SAP, and that's all available directly within the transaction, what we call as the output reconciliation transaction, and you can then email it directly to the supplier. Ad hoc, either manually or automatically.
And I think it's worth just saying an automatically there. So how the system would do it is when you define your levels of approval, let's say you've got just one person going to approve the recon. Once that person has approved, then you can set it that the system will automatically email the reconciliation report to the supplier. Very rarely we've seen that people say, listen, we don't even want to look at the recon within our own company. As soon as we receive the statement, let the system match it and email the recon to the supplier. But that would be an exception. Usually it would be after the people within the accounts payable department have actually approved the recon. Okay. And I've kind of touched on that next one. It's how many levels of recon approval can we have in SAP?
So,
you go forward with that one, Jason.
Thank you, Andy. There's an unlimited amount depending on your requirement. Obviously, we restrict it to about 9 levels, but in typical cases, it's mostly about a 1-level approval, but 2 levels and 3 levels is also what we commonly come across based on our other clients, but we do allow you anything from 1 to 9 levels of approval.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's the questions that I've got, that I've seen so far. If anyone does have more questions, we've put some contact information up on the screen there, so please do contact us. We're also very available to give you direct demos, personal demos for your situation. And I also know that it's the World Cup Rugby opening ceremony in Japan at the moment. So this is a good opportunity for us to close the webinar slowly and go and watch that on the TV. Craig, anything more from your side?
Nothing from my side except just to thank everyone for joining this morning. I hope it was useful, and as Henry has said there, My contact details are up, so please make a note of them, reach out, and certainly looking forward to helping your organization with what Best can do.